My sister always stole my things. So, when we were both pregnant, I told her my baby would have a different name. But this little joke ruined her life. How could I not realize that my sister wanted to steal my future daughter's name for herself? My sister is an attention thief. She wants to steal everyone's attention so they focus on her. I mean, how dare I get pregnant around the same time as her and with the same gender? How dare I? At first, she said it was a conspiracy. Yes, my husband and I planned it. I stared at her and told her she was crazy. My sister didn't like that, but even her husband laughed. Then she turned her anger on him, yelling and even hitting him. I remember looking at my husband in shock. It was so shocking to see her hit her husband, but he just stood there, letting her do it without even trying to stop her. The pity I felt for my brother-in-law at that moment was strong. He deserved so much more than what she was doing to him. I've been in this situation with my sister for a long, long time. Seeing everyone have perfect relationships with their siblings makes me feel bitter and angry because I don't have that kind of relationship. Can you imagine that super close relationship with your siblings as you grow up? You're both like best friends forever. I guess I thought that might happen with my sister when I was a baby and a little girl. I actually wanted to be part of whatever she was doing, following her around as she went about her day. But no, my sister didn't want anything to do with that. I remember doing this after years and years of abuse from my sister, who never treated me well. I think I'm getting ahead of myself, so let me go back to the beginning. During my childhood, I started to realize that my sister didn't want anything to do with me. She would push me, hit me, and I think she even bit me once. My parents would scold her because my sister was the type of kid who always made a scene no matter what. If she didn't get what she wanted, she would make a fuss. She was one of those kids who would throw a tantrum. If not, she'd come into my room, and if she saw me playing with a toy, she'd go crazy because she wanted it. She made me never want to play with anything. My mom and dad worked, so I guess they got tired of scolding her. It was easier to tell me to share with her and to apologize. Yes, the girl who bit me was the one who had to say sorry. Pretty crazy if you ask me. My sister should have been the one apologizing to me for literally putting her teeth on me. But no, not in my house. I would apologize and let her play with my toys. Eventually, my sister would get tired of them and leave them. Then I could go back to playing with them, but only after my sister decided she didn't want them anymore. I hate my sister. Yeah, a little strong, but I hate her. I hate her with every fiber of my being. But it wasn't always like that. When I was younger, I wanted my sister's attention. I tried to do everything I could to make her like me, but it didn't matter what I tried. My sister seemed almost offended that I dared to try to make her like me. It was like she wanted me to eat dirt. Eventually, it didn't work, and I started to hate my sister. At 12, when my sister decided she wanted a new video game that my parents had bought for me, they took her side by giving it to her. And that helped me realize that my parents were never going to help me. They were always going to choose my sister over me because she was the more difficult daughter. It was easier for them to let her bully me because I was the easier one. I guess I could start causing trouble, but I didn't want to do that either. I wasn't that kind of person. So I decided to distance myself from my sister and my parents. And if my sister wanted something from me, then I'd let her take it. It bothered me, but I didn't have any other choice but to deal with it. When I was old enough to have friends and go to their houses, I would leave my things there or at school. If it was at their house or at school, I didn't have to worry about anything being stolen from me. When I was able to move into the college dorms, I was thrilled. I didn't even bother coming back during the holidays if I could avoid it. The only reason I did was to see my friends, and I tried to spend as much time as possible away from the house doing something with them. It's been a few years since I graduated from college. By then I had gotten a job, a place to live, and a life for myself away from my sister. My sister had already moved out of the house and was with her boyfriend. I didn't think she loved him because of the way I heard her talk about him on the rare occasions that I came home. My sister saw him as a source of money. He was going to give her the lifestyle she wanted, which bothered me a lot, but I tried to avoid her as much as possible. My parents tried to make amends with me, even though they still let my sister get away with everything she did. I couldn't believe her or them, to be honest. Outside of my family, I was doing pretty well. I had good friends, a good job, and I met a nice guy. We started out as friends at first, and then he asked me out. The only thing I didn't do was introduce him to my parents or my family. I didn't want to for a while because I knew what my sister was like. He wasn't the type of guy she would be interested in because I made more money than him, but I expected my sister to do something to bother me. I met his family, and it was more than okay. They liked me and accepted me, without any drama, without any problems with them. But he did ask me about my family and wanted to meet them. So, after a year of dating, I decided to introduce them. The good thing is, my sister didn't care enough about my boyfriend to bother us. To my sister, my boyfriend wasn't anything interesting. He was someone she would look down on, and even though it bothered me that she saw him as inferior, at least she stayed away. It was good that she didn't show much interest in him, because if she did show some interest, then she might try to seduce him. I trusted my boyfriend, but I wanted to avoid all the potential drama that my sister could cause, since she lives for those things. Besides, my sister was much more focused on her rich trophy husband. I felt bad for that guy, but I figured if he chose her, then maybe he wasn't such a great person either. I was able to relax a little with my family and my boyfriend, but I still kept my distance. Eventually, my boyfriend and I got engaged. We got married in front of a judge and then had a party with friends. I told my family after it already happened, and boy, were they mad. But I knew my sister would make it all about her, and my parents would allow it. Shortly after I got married, my sister also ended up getting married. She had a big, fancy wedding that I wasn't invited to, but that's okay. I didn't really want to go to her wedding anyway. Still, she did what she could to rub her invitation in my face. I just laughed, threw it in the trash, and went on with my life. Anyway, we both lived our lives. We were doing pretty well, enjoying the first year or so of our marriage. After a while, my husband and I realized that we wanted to have a baby. So, we started trying. Somehow I told my parents that we were going to have a baby, or we wanted to try. My sister found out about this and finally decided that she was going to make sure she had a baby before I did. No way could my husband and I have a baby first, because that would be too much for her. We both started trying, and just when we announced it, my sister also announced that she was pregnant. I couldn't believe that she was the type of person who would have a baby just to beat me at something. There was no way she would have a baby for any other reason. That's how I thought about it at first. I tried to tell myself that maybe I was imagining things. Maybe it was just paranoia. Maybe it was a coincidence. But then the little things started to add up. My mother started dropping subtle hints that my sister wanted to get ahead of me. My father made some strange comments about how she had always been competitive growing up, and now that we were adults, that's how she was. Then my sister started acting like she had beaten me at something I wasn't even competing in. She treated it like it was some kind of Olympic event. Anyway, we both went through our pregnancies and I stayed in contact with my parents, keeping them up to date on what was happening. One day, I went to see them, and I saw that my sister was there. She decided to ask me about my daughter's name. This was something I always had. Had a feeling was going to happen. It was a fact. My sister wanted to know the name I was going to give my daughter. We were both going to have daughters, and she wanted to make sure hers was better than mine. So, I told her a fake name. It wasn't the name I wanted anyway, and my husband and I had decided on another name. The fake name was one I thought about using for my daughter at one point, but then we decided we wanted to go another way. It was one I kept in mind, in case the situation came up. My sister's reaction was absolutely the best. At first, she tried to act like she didn't care that much, as if she was pretending it didn't affect her. But then, for the rest of the visit, she kept going back to the topic, asking me several times about the name. "Are you sure about that? How did you come up with such a weird name? Does your husband like it? Did you consider other names?" And so on. It was question after question. "If you don't mind, why are you interrogating me like a detective trying to solve a case? My sister was a very silly woman. You never know when she was going to do one of her silly things and try to ruin my life." So, I let her think I was using this fake name. Before this, I should mention that my parents were telling me that I should tell them the name. My sister was urging them to find out, wanting to know, but not asking me directly, because she knew I wasn't going to tell her. Giving a fake name was a good thing for 2 reasons. It helped me trick my sister, but it also helped my parents leave me alone. After telling them the name, I noticed that my sister was kind of too sure of herself. It was weird, but then I realized that my sister was probably going to use the name. My husband and I discussed it. He seemed angry, but I assured him that nothing bad was going to happen because I had already accepted the type of person my sister was. As we got closer to my due date, I focused more on myself, the baby, and my husband. But it was my sister who gave birth first. One day, she went into labor, and somehow I also went into labor. Within a few days, I was so focused on having the baby that I didn't even think about my sister for a single second. It was the day after I had the baby that my sister came with her baby to visit me. She introduced me to her baby with the name I had chosen. My sister looked at my baby and said that she loved the name so much that she decided to use it. Since my sister had her daughter first, now I was going to have to change the name, according to what she said. Then my husband and I started laughing. My sister looked at us, unable to understand why we were laughing. I told her that I never intended to use that name. The reason I told her that name was because I knew she wanted to use it. This was my way of beating her at her own game, a game she's been playing since we were girls. My sister was so angry. She handed her daughter to her husband and told him to wait in the hallway. Then she started yelling at me, causing both babies to start crying. My husband told her to leave because she was upsetting everyone. She shouted that she was never going to forgive me. I burst out laughing, despite all the emotions I was feeling at that moment. My sister is crazy if she thinks that's how everything is going to happen. So, I told her to leave. I was going to ask the nurse to take her out by force. She shouted at me, "I can't believe you're doing this to me." Then she left and obviously started bothering my family. It was clear that they were going to take my sister's side, even if they didn't say so. It was obvious from the way they acted. Honestly, distancing myself from my family and cutting ties was something I needed to do. It was something I should have done a long time ago. They never really loved me. Maybe they did in their own way, but it was always my sister who seemed to matter more to them, maybe just because they wanted to keep the peace. And I hated the fact that I couldn't have a relationship with them because my daughter deserved both grandparents. However, I knew that ship had sailed a long time ago. So, I told my parents that I wasn't going to apologize to my sister for being angry since she couldn't beat me with our daughters' names. How could she take such a happy event and turn it into a competition? There was something really wrong with her. I always knew it, but at that moment I realized that there was something really wrong. She needed psychological help or something. If that was her main concern, her focus should be on spending time with her daughter and her husband. It's hard to say how her husband is handling all this. I don't know, because I don't talk to any of them anymore. I keep them at a distance, making sure I don't have any contact with my own family. But it's not like I don't have a family. I have my husband, my daughter, and his family, who are great. They're the parents I never had. By keeping my family at a distance, I hoped my sister would leave me alone once and for all. But I knew my sister was silly, so there was no way this was going to happen. One day, she decided to come and vandalize my property, along with my car. I found this out when I woke up the next morning. It was obvious it was her because I had a Ring camera on the door. It recorded her while she was doing it, and she kept laughing while she did it. What the hell was wrong with her? Was she some kind of weird supervillain? That's how it seemed to me at that moment. I decided it was time to file charges. She may not experience many consequences from the police, but I wanted to give her a taste of her own medicine. Once she was arrested, my sister quickly got out on bail thanks to, you guessed it, my parents. They wanted to make sure that their precious princess didn't have to spend any more time in jail than necessary. Of course, they didn't care that my property had been vandalized. They didn't care that I woke up to a car with insults scratched in the paint, a broken window, and the mailbox crushed like an accordion. They didn't care that my husband was furious, that we had to file insurance claims, that we had to clean up the mess my sister left. No, their only concern was their poor, mistreated daughter, the same one they raised to believe she could do no wrong. But the worst thing was when they tried to bribe me to drop the charges. They offered me a large sum of money. They said they would pay for the damages and even help me get a more expensive car if I just left my sister alone. The audacity was almost impressive, as if money could fix years of blatant favoritism, as if my sister hadn't already done enough damage to my life, as if I was going to let her go without consequences. I said no. My parents may want to keep tricking my sister into thinking her horrible behavior is okay, but that's not something I was going to do. So, I told them no and to lose my number. The best way to cut all contact is to just do it. It's something I had wanted to do with my parents for a long time, and I don't think they expected it. They kept saying they couldn't believe it, begging me to change my mind. When that didn't work, they started yelling at me, which was ironic considering they always told me to keep the peace and not make scenes. But I guess it was okay when they lost their temper. My sister exploded and tried to crash her car into my house with her daughter in the backseat. I couldn't believe what she did, and neither could her husband. The car ended up hitting the curb and my mailbox, not even getting close to my house. While I was in the living room, I heard the crash, followed by the sound of shouting and a baby crying. I looked out the window and saw my sister, delirious, kicking her car and cursing as if it was the car's fault. She was completely out of control. Well, the first person I called was my brother-in-law. I kept his number on speed dial all this time just in case. He deserved to know that my sister had had an accident with his daughter, who was only a few weeks old. As soon as he found out that his daughter was in the back seat, he went crazy. He thanked me and said he was on his way. When my brother-in-law arrived at the scene, the situation got even crazier. I went out to greet him, offering him and the baby to come inside the house while we called the police again. My brother-in-law at that moment just broke down. He was crying inconsolably. He had been the one who had taken the most care of the baby while my sister ignored her daughter. He admitted that she barely held her, barely fed her, barely even looked at her, unless it was to take a picture for social media. The more he talked, the more horrified I felt because it was worse than I thought. I knew my sister was a bad mother, but not a disgusting mother. This wasn't postpartum depression. It was complete detachment. The moment she couldn't use her daughter to beat me, she lost all interest. It was like she only wanted her daughter to try to surpass me. When I ruined that by lying about the name, my sister decided that motherhood wasn't for her. Well, the time to decide that motherhood wasn't for her was before she got pregnant, but my sister never thinks things through clearly. I would faint in surprise if she ever thought about something before acting. I'm not the type of person who lives their life without thinking. I'm a person who loves to plan. I even planned the time to plan things for myself. That's how neurotic I am. After all this, as you can imagine, my parents contacted me again. I quickly told them that they were wasting their time talking to me on the phone because I wasn't going to change my mind, that my sister had to be held accountable for the consequences of her actions. It was time for my sister to stop having everything served to her on a silver platter. This time, they couldn't pay her bail because they were considering what had happened before. The judge didn't trust that she wasn't going to keep messing up, and from what was being said, my sister could face anger management classes, jail time, and even a fine. It was all she deserved and more. But that wasn't all. Her husband also contacted me to say that he was planning to divorce my sister and ask for full custody of their daughter. He asked me if I would be a character witness in his favor, and I didn't hesitate to say yes because he deserved to have custody of my niece. She would be much better off with him. Plus, by having custody of my niece, I could have the opportunity to spend more time with her and let our daughters bond. It was important to have extended family in your life. My parents were only children, so I never had cousins. At least my daughter could see her cousin now that my sister was no longer in the picture. So, that's my situation with my sister, or at least what I could summarize. It's been intense years, but the last few, and particularly the last few weeks, have been worse. But if I had written everything here, this would probably be 2 or 3 times as long now. My parents say that no charges should be filed against family, but I don't see myself forgiving those charges. I've dealt with enough problems with my sister over the past years since I was a child. I had also thought about writing this later when the rest of the situation progresses, but it's likely to be so long that it won't fit in a Reddit post. So, I promise to come back when I have something to tell about my sister's story, as long as you're interested. Update 1. For those of you who are worried that I withdrew the charges, I haven't. In fact, my sister's legal situation right now is more difficult. Destroying a mailbox is considered a federal crime, so she's far from getting out of all this with a simple fine. He has gotten partial custody of his daughter because the mother is being held until trial. Still, he has already started with the divorce and is looking to speed it up as soon as possible. Despite being a man who chose to marry my sister, he seems like a better father than she could be. Well, a hungry lioness would be a better mother to a human baby than she would be at this point. But she won't even be a mother, because in addition to all the legal problems she's facing, my brother-in-law assured me that she won't see her daughter even if she gets out of prison. He will ask not only for full custody of the daughter, but also for a restraining order. He has no shortage of evidence, since crashing a car into a mailbox with your baby in the back seat doesn't indicate to the judge that she's a good mother. Quite the opposite. And as for my niece's name, my brother-in-law likes it, so he plans to keep it. We like it too, only we like the one we chose better. My parents still want me to do something for my sister, to give her a new opportunity, but with so many messes she's gotten into, even if I withdraw the charges, she won't get out of all this. She has chosen violence at every step of the way. Update 2. My sister asked her lawyer to write a message to me on her behalf, which he delivered to me, a message full of threats and insults. That's why her lawyer was removed from the case, in addition to having his license revoked for doing something against the law. All this was happening while my brother-in-law was getting the divorce and full custody of the daughter. He was granted a restraining order for at least 2 years, which my brother-in-law must renew once that time has passed, since for the moment it won't be of much help to him unless my sister escapes from prison. I think that with this I have told you everything about her trial for her attacks against me and my property, since they have given her 3.5 years in prison. My parents were crying during the entire reading of the verdict, which I attended, but I sat on the other side of the room so as not to be near my parents, who throughout this time sought to have me drop the lawsuit in every possible way. They have even had to pay a fine for harassment, thanks to my lawyer acting quickly. They know that they will not be able to have a relationship with my daughter, nor will my brother-in-law let them see his. He has forbidden them, knowing that my parents will defend my sister, despite the mountain of evidence that proves that she is a bad person, and that indirectly points out that they have been bad parents. Before I go and leave these publications behind, I would like to highlight a comment. It has been funny, and I think it is worth mentioning. It talked about how my sister will now be able to defend herself in jail by biting other convicts. You don't know what you have made me laugh because that is her patented move when it comes to showing her dominance. The funny thing is that in jail, her teeth will not last long if she does something like that.